Okay, welcome back to today's last session. Please all have a seat. The last session today is on agrarianism in the aftermath of World War II. We have 4 speakers. I will introduce them just briefly. The first presentation will be given by Tomasz Skrzyński. He's an adjunct at the Higher Business School in Nowy Sacz. He holds a PhD and wrote his PhD thesis on communist politics in the voivodeship Krakow, 1947 to 1948. Then we have Éva Cseszka. She also holds a PhD. She is associate professor at Peter Pazman Catholic University. She has her publications include, published last year, a book on economic trials in Hungary, 1945-1943. Then we have Vasil Paraskevov. He holds a PhD. He's a lecturer at Konstantin Braslavsky University in Shumen, Bulgaria. His PhD thesis was on the agrarian opposition in Bulgaria after 1944. And finally, we have Jaroslav Rokoski, Dr. Jaroslav Rokoski of Uniwersytetu Jan Ewangelista Pukine in Ústí nad Labem. And we will start with Tomasz Skrzyński with a presentation on the Polish Peasant Party after the departure of Stanisław Mikołajczyk, its place on the political stage, the structures. Please.
The Polish Peasant Party, after the departure of Stanisław Mikołajczyk, its place of the political stage, the structures. November 1947, November 1949, created in 1945 the Polish Peasant Party, PSL, called for the leading role of the peasants in the country. They believed in their winning parliamentary elections. It was known of the limited public support of the Communist Polish Workers' Party, PPR. In the spring of 1946, the party was the most numerous political party in the country. It was a major and, since the summer of 1946, the only legal opposition party in Poland. Dominated in the country. The Peasant Party, SL, dependent on PPR, has little influence. PSL was also very influential in the cities. The communists aspired to transform Poland into a totalitarian regime and dissembled their plans for the time being in order to flatter the aspirations of citizens by introduction profitable reforms to society and democratic slogans. They did not treat the peasants on equal terms and their political partners. The objectives of the PPR were in the total opposition even to the peasant movement autonomy. In the spring, PPR began an extremely brutal campaign against the PSL. At the same time, it offered the PSL activists operation. They counted on internal diversity among the members of the PSL and the vulnerability of the peasant movement to spills. This led to divisions within the legal the legal opposition. From an ideological point of view, every time, the most important point of contention within the Peasant Party was an attitude the politics of the communists. Those who were the companies among agrarians particularly gave up the hope of gaining the power by declaring their efforts to improve their fate and representing the largest social class in Poland. Supports the cooperation with the communists get very little influence. The first established was in support by socialists. The group united by the magazine The Peasant Unity and Polish Peasant Party New Deliverance. It stood out from the opposition tactics of PSL. It justified that depending struggle could directly lead to civil war, what would mean the tragedy for the whole society and the state. The impunity of the Polish Peasant Party, repressions and the communist falsification of the results of the parliamentary elections, January 1947, resulted in another split. It was established not numerous the Polish Peasant Party left, guided the distinguished educational activist Czesław Richter and one of the leaders of the peasant movement during the war and valued agrarian ideologist Józef Nieczko. The party wanted to win the favor of the peasants for the regime. Small and medium ownership was considered to be very important, permanent, necessary part of the economy. The objectives of the PSL left were unrealistic. It was not sufficient for the PSL left to blur the differences between agrarism and communism and the experience of the existing system for permanent. The communists aspired to force to accept the long-term plans. Pepper still significantly supported the development of SL, which was dependent on itself. It was also distrustful of the PSL left and frequently prevented the development of a local level. Despite the growing terror and the lack of effective assistance of the Western powers, PSL leader Stanisław Mikołajczyk urged his subordinates to persevere. Information about the plans to arrest and kill him resulted in the secretly leaving Poland at the end of October 1947. His unexpected departure from the country supposed spies and resulted in deep disappointment among the peasants and their activists. The part of the PSL farmer leadership tried the communists with paper, but these attempts were rejected by the last. It was far easier for PSL left to take over control in November with the help PPR in Warsaw and in the voivodeships, the secretaries and the legal opposition authorities and establish the new leaderships. The party managed to acquire to some well-known activists at the central and provincial level. They should have lent credence to the party in the villages. were program in the program of the new party, in fact, did not criticize the mistakes of the communist regime. The idea was the sure formally the continuity of group, save as many as possible of a peasant movement achievements to prevent activities from further repressions and have to precise impact on the economic and social transformations. The price they need to pay was the adaptation to the regime and the collaboration with the communists on unequal terms. At the same time, from November 1947 to the spring of 1948, the communists are dependent on the PSL, sometimes also socialists, were trying to take over electorate and the majority of the activists of recent legal opposition. The communists were ordered to, on the side, fight with Mikołajczyk, on the other, pull out the honest person. The meetings were organized mostly by PPR. The attendance at meetings were exerted through administrative channel and with the assistance of the elite circles. Not surprisingly, the results of the recruiting action were far below expectation. In the small part of the meetings also attended the activists coming from the party, which was just organizing. But they did not always say what people wanted. What for the communists were not sufficient for the majority of the peasants, however, was not expectable. At the turn of 1947 and 1948, many activists of PSL renewed their activity and at the district level. In order to avoid imprisonment, they wanted to show the change in their view. The communists decided, however, that the party was to regime activity in almost all voivodeships, but only in some designated districts. PPR management recommended to enable the formation of a Liberal Party where SL was weak and industry was not developed. Hence, the cases of activity within the party in districts were till October 1947 was structures of a legal opposition. Nominating districts sometimes was considered how many of the members of a legal opposition was accurate to parties being in favor of government. However, there were expectations to the above rule, something stemming from the weakness of the structures of the legal opposition in 1945-1946. For example, a lack of party structures in Voivodeship Białystok. In the districts where there was no plans for any reborn peasant party activities, the communists prevented the convening of many of the party organization meetings. They extorted a formal termination of the movement operations. The termination of the party promises and transfer to SL. PSL hypocritically were taught that the district's authorities of the reborn party did not give the such personal changes what would guarantee important and a peaceful cooperation with pro-communist bloc of democratic parties. The members of the party, as a result of their favor of Mikołajczyk activity, could not considered for loyal political associations and as such should be eliminated from the political life. At the beginning of February 1948, the national authorities of PPR instructed to soften the attitude towards the party. The number of districts in which it was able to begin its activity increased. The decision stemmed from the results of described above, action of getting new members in the PPR and SL ranks. In the communists described above, the reborn party was a part of the communist policy aimed at gaining the support of the peasants for the totalitarian regime. According to their plans, it was to concentrate only the recent supports of PSL, which were failed to acquire by the PPR and SL. The party supposed to be not numerous. The communists and SL were suspicious towards the party. They recently referred to its development below the district's level. They knew of lack of sincere support for the totalitarian system among the party activists. It was widely known that many activists were torn between private and official view. The activists wanted to, as little as possible, get involved on the regime side. In order to change this communist planet, to indoctrinate the party activists, to force them to accept seriously the transformations made in the country and to support actively the totalitarian regime. The party was supposed to work almost intently in the rural areas. The management of PPR forbade to development of the party. In the cities, especially large one, PSL must be a peasant organization. The urban boards abolished in cities, for instance, Poznań, Chorzów, living here and there some circles. The only expression was Warsaw. In some districts, however, survived a small representation in the municipal national concerns. The communist activists had a lot of satisfaction selecting management districts of a reborn PSL. However, they would like the most seeing of those recent members and activists of the legal opposition in the ranks of the previously exciting from pro-government parties. Reported in the PPR sources 60,000 members in the country at the end of 1947 was strongly overestimated. Until 1948, reborn PSL had built structures in the majority of the districts in Poland. Many activists belonged in the peasant movement before the war. The overwhelming majority of members were peasants. The activity of the members was very small, as the PSL was ill-treated by the communist activists. They did take They didn't take into account the opinion and suggestions of the party. Of little help were Konion's declarations of loyalty from the movement side. The communist activists or little help were continuous declarations of loyalty from the movement fair comparisons with the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we will hear Dr. Cseszka with a presentation on the theoretical and political struggles between agrarian experts and the Communist Party in Hungary, 45 to 48.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, in my lecture I made my task to clear up how the civil servants of the Ministry of Agriculture thought about the situation of Hungarian agriculture and how they tried to take steps in order to save private property and prevent collectivization. And at the other hand, I also examined the tactic of the Hungarian Communist Party in order to clean the ministry from the undesirable persons with the help of political police and the propaganda. So after the World War II, the provisional Hungarian government in 1945 passed the sweeping land reform. After the redistribution of the land, instead of large estates, dwarf holdings came into existence, which were mainly incapable of being. This reform was important for the communists because of two purposes. First, they wanted to win the support of the peasants, or at least to weaken their resistance. And second, to prepare the grounds for later moves towards socialization of the countryside. In this, they were following the Moscow schedule for the phases of revolution obligatory in all countries. Early moves towards socialization were proceeding elsewhere in the economy from 1945. The national economies of Central and Eastern Europe were reorganized according to the Soviet pattern. Ministry of Agriculture at that time was Center of Agrarian Experts. Let me mention the name of Károly Iring or Jenő Cettler, two well-known experts, and Béla Pernecki, who was the head of the minister's department. Theoretically, they explicitly opposed the increasingly socialist Hungarian political system and the course of the development. All of them expressed that Röpke's third way idea was exemplary for Hungary. Quoting the examples of the Pope encyclicals, they stood on the ground of private ownership and thought the degree of nationalization is a mistake from ethical and production point of view. They would also utilize the Marshall Aid, and they thought that the 3-year plan is unrealizable. In the ministry, they did not agree with the land reform of the government because it did not consider the production technology, and they thought that the dwarf estates are not fit for life. Béla Pernecki also joined the social workshop of the Akció Katolika and was in correspondence with the leaders of this organ. They established the cultural section of this institution in the Ministry of Agriculture, and they regularly had discussions about the main political and economical questions in Hungary, and they also wrote essays about the problems of democracy and Christianity. The Ministry of Agriculture granted several thousand forints from the Technical Education Fund to the Akció Katolika. Pernecki also urged his friends and colleagues to join the Central Catholic Circle, and above this reported some political movements to Cardinal József Mindszenty, Archbishop of Esztergom. They were traditionally non-party, but having relations to the leaders of democratic and Western-type parties. If we assemble the relations of the civil servants, we find that most of them personally knew Ferenc Nagy, Prime Minister, who at that time had been forced abroad, and Béla Kovács, who had been hauled to the Soviet Union in connection with the Hungarian community trial. Although there was strong propaganda against the employees, about half of them were non-party because they did not agree with the program of any parties, and they thought that even the Smallholders Party was a communist collaborator after 1947, so the election cheat. In spite of this, they were engaged in politics and always were open to the right side, so to the civil parties, but these parties became hunted as the enemy concept of the Hungarian Communist Party broadened. The civil servants considered József Mindszenty and Dezső Súlyog as their so-called political leaders, but they were also in contact with other Western-type party leaders. The Information Bureau Conference that was held at the end of July in 1948 criticized Yugoslavia because Tito said that the peasants, including the rich ones, were the most stable supporters of the Yugoslav state. However, according to Lenin's theory, farm improves capitalism hour by hour. The excommunication of the Yugoslav communists demonstrated that there is no independent route, and the Soviet model has to be used in Hungary too. So a decision was made on fast collectivization, and the trial against the Ministry of Agriculture was meant to ease this process. Although economic type trials seem to be only sabotage suits, especially mainly in the propaganda, however, they became political trials in the given political situation. In the trial against the civil servants of the Ministry of Agriculture, the power paid off with its political enemies because the non-party situation resulted in increased sentences. Communist propaganda also preferred to use the already sentenced people to discredit the persons involved in the new trials. The case against the Minister of Agriculture was timed to the trial against the leaders of Akció Katolika, and it was made public that the first accused, Béla Pernecki, had got letters from Cardinal József Mindszenty, who was sentenced afterwards. It is worth to examine that it was not the first accused, Béla Pernecki, who played the main role, but the main goal was to clean the Ministry of Agriculture from the persona non grata. In spite of the coalition government at the end of 1948, only those could remain leaders in the ministries who were committed followers of the Hungarian Workers' Party and who accepted party policy as compulsory. The examination of the political composition of the Ministry of Agriculture and the economic thought of the civil servants proves the statement that the trial against the Minister of Agriculture had long antecedents. The organizational and personal construction of the ministry shows that it was not exempt from political fights, although after 1945 the Minister of Agriculture was traditionally a smallholder interest and did not belong to the key positions for the Hungarian Communist Party. Yet, we must assert that it had a careful tactic in order to clean the ministries from the undesirable persons from the beginning. So the ministries were gradually seized by the political police, and the Hungarian Communist Party members working in the ministry continuously informed the party center about the cases in the ministry. The police continuously collected the evidences against the accused from 1945. In the propaganda, the fight against the later accused started during the political screening process. So we can by all means state that the communist state security organizations were fully aware of the situation in the Ministry of Agriculture from the beginning. And they usually started press attack in the topic of the later charges. The logic of the suit against the Ministry of Agriculture was the following. After 1945, a spirituality was given which was in contrast with the development towards socialist direction. The political view of the accused was similar to that of the Horthy regime. That is why they did not enter any parties, because they saw them too left-sided. As a consequence, they established the non-party bloc, which constitute the political basis of the conspiracy. This organization marked the direction to follow and pointed out a so-called commissary to every department, similar to the other parties, who usually were the leaders of the departments. These people interfered working, drew away the plan credits from their original purposes, did sabotage systematically in the departments. In addition, they were in connection with the agents of foreign intelligence services and smuggled out different secret information to foreign countries in illegal way in order to participate actively in the organization of conspiracy against Hungary under the aegis of the American Military Counterintelligence Corps. Thus, the conception had 3 levels, as you can see. Oh, you can't see this political conspiracy, the economic sabotage, and the disloyalty. And this was framed by the spirituality of the accused. The role of the concrete charges in the case were rather to call the attention that was not a mature and consistent conception. It is important to make absolutely clear that in this case the investigation was not made by the state security, which is called AVH in Hungarian, but by the economical police. To discredit the leaders of the institute, the party newspaper published the new happenings day by day. And in the propaganda, the communists tried to intermingle and criminalize the cases. So according to the charges, the major part of the executives of the Ministry of Agriculture formed a fascist group, and as a gang of criminals, they sabotaged the development of the agriculture, opposed the surplus appropriation, and saying that they are experts, they obstructed the realization of the communist conceptions, and they employed peasant defender demagogism. The power blamed the Ministry of Agriculture that in 1948 planned economy was insufficiently implemented in the agriculture. There were more conception changes in the preparation and carry-out stage. Organization, execution and results of the trial were influenced by the decision of the Information Office. It is necessary and essential to mention that the case started with another concept, since the first arrests had been made before it when the relatives Ferenc Kiss and Elemir Kiss were arrested. So this kind of level. And the materials were separately collected, and when the conception changed, they were attached to the trial. The next act started in May 1948 when, based on a memo of the Economical Council, the auditors were sent to the Ministry of Agriculture. István Dobi minister asked the Hungarian state police to join the investigation, and these investigations found out that behind the actions there were organized political forces that did not want the moving towards the people's democracy. This was a quotation. The police investigation extended only over some departments. The heads of the examined departments were the civil servants accused with being non-party men. Mátyás Rákosi, first secretary of the Hungarian Communist Party, wrote his notes on the reorganization of the ministry as well as on the personal changes foreseeing the probable sentence. By the reorganization of the ministry, he put the emphasis on the departments responsible for the socialist development, thus preparing collectivization. It can also be pointed out that the trial against the Ministry of Agriculture served the terrorization of the intelligentsia and the action against expertness. Examining the education of the accused, it can be determined that 63 of them had a degree from law, economics, engineering. 24 of them had even a doctorate, and the other accused had only in brackets, high school graduation or at least high school certificate. So it is clear that one of the goals of the trial was to terrify the experts. So they gave the reason for acting against the expertness with the following: the enemies of the democratic state who fulfill all the requirements of qualifications committed crime in their positions in order to overthrow democratic republic. Summarizing my lecture, I have to conclude that it is a fact that their expertness, thought, and their economic aspects turned the civil servants against the communists and tried to repel the attacks of the party in the more and more totalitarian situation. As a consequence of this, they supported those forces who could resist the Communist Party in the changing political situation. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. And we will move straight ahead to Dr. Paraskevov with a presentation entitled The Last Struggle, the Suppression of Agrarian Parties in Bulgaria, Hungary and Romania, 44 to 48.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, my presentation is focused on the main methods that communist parties in Bulgaria, Romania and Hungary used against the agrarian parties in these countries. My presentation is not a complete survey of agrarian activities of these parties. The focus is just on suppression of agrarian activities. What fascinates me about this topic is not exactly the struggle and this political and ideological clash between communism and agrarian parties, or between democracy and forthcoming totalitarian state. In this case, we can see a direct contradictions between different sense of common words, like what is the sense of word friend or the word advice. And I think this struggle between communist and agrarian parties give to a certain extent the answer of this question. What I found in my research is several main methods that the authorities used against agrarian parties. The first and very common method, which we can see in all these countries, was the big importance of Soviet representatives in Dalit control commissions in these countries that was established under the armistice with them. The Soviet representatives interfered in the internal activities and the internal affairs of these countries in every important matter. The other method that the authorities used against the agrarian parties, that was the pressure on agrarian members, the surveillance of agrarian activities, the penetration of state security agents in the agrarian parties, the intimidation of agrarians, falsifications of elections, at least in some of them, such as Bulgaria and Romania. The other very important method was the gathering of so-called evidence or so-called confessions about conspiracies and some kind of collaboration between agrarian leaders and foreign political representatives, basically American and British representatives in this country. And eventually, the last hit against agrarian opposition was the public trials against agrarian leaders that led to sentence and eventually to the prohibition of agrarian parties. First, I'll try to answer what reasons drive agrarians to become opposition or to start severe contradictions between them and communists. The first answer, that was the communist suppression of basic people's freedom, such as the right of speech, the right of political meetings, publications of agrarian newspapers, and also some political murders, which increase the agrarian dissatisfactions with the activity of communist parties. Again, I would like also to mention ideological differences between agrarian and communists as regards the future developments of these countries. And finally, there were also obvious dissatisfactions between agrarian leaders with the inferior position of their parties in the society, in the political life. Because, at least if we follow the expressions of Nicola Petkov, who was the leader of Bulgarian Agrarian Union, and Maniu, who was the leader of National Peasant Party in Romania, they have a very big self-confidence that agrarians represent the majority of populations. But because communists used important state institutions such as the Ministry of Interior and relied on Soviet support, they succeeded to suppress agrarian parties And during important election campaigns, such as elections in 1946, they succeeded to win these elections. The similar estimations about agrarian popularity can be found in foreign sources, such as various reports from British mission in Bulgaria and Romania. Initially, agrarians, at least my impression is this, met with hopes the establishment of, for instance, Отечествен front in Bulgaria, or Fatherland Front, and provisional government in Hungary. A young member of Hungarian Smallholders Party claimed in August 1945 that there was a gap in the power after the suppression of old ruling class. Therefore, Hungarian people could form its future according to its desire. Unfortunately, the future showed that this opinion was very optimistic and, in general, unrealistic. Another impression in the same way was made on the 5th of March 1945 by agrarian leader in Bulgaria, Nicola Petkov, who demonstrated his self-confidence in the meeting with British political representatives. He said, according to his opinions, that agrarians still have the majority of the population behind them. Under the democratic regime, the agrarians would run the country. Under the existing regime, the communists are running it. Several examples in directions that these words of Petkov underlined. These cases involved also the interference of the Soviet representatives in internal affairs. I will follow this example in chronological order, and we'll start with the resignation of Bulgarian agrarian leader, Dr. Georgi Dimitrov, also known as Gemeto. The Bulgarian Workers' Party, communists, supported by the Soviet officers in the Allied Control Commission, directly threatened the agrarians in January 1945 that if Dr. Dimitrov didn't resign from the Agrarian Party, this party might be dissolved from the authorities. To avoid this fate of the party, Dr. Dimitrov resigned. Then he was published under home custody, but in May 1945 he escaped and found home for several months in the villa of American representative in Bulgaria, Maynard Barnes. Dimitrov stayed here till September the same year, when he flew to the United States, where he lived till his death in 1970s. The other important point that illustrates the Soviet pressure on agrarians were the negotiations about the implementation of Moscow Agreement that was signed on 25 December 1945. This agreement seemed like a Christmas gift about the agrarians, but in fact it wasn't. The agreement considered the inclusion of representatives of Bulgarian and Romanian opposition in the government. In this way, the local government would achieve a representative character and would be recognized by the Western powers. In Romania, negotiations succeeded, and two representatives of opposition joined the government in February 1946. But in Bulgaria, the case was much more different. In the Moscow agreement was mentioned that the Soviet should give friendly advice to Bulgarian opposition to join the government. The Soviet, however, understood the advice in a completely different way than the Bulgarian opposition. To negotiate with Bulgarian opposition in Sofia was sent Vyshinsky, who called Nikola Petkov on conversation about midnight on the day when he arrived. Agrarian leader refused to negotiate in the evening. He said, "I am sleeping in the night," but could negotiate during the day. The reaction of Vyshinsky was severe. He threatened directly Petkov that this act would have very bad consequences about his future. And I think that was the first case when Petkov was threatened directly, that his opposition attitude might result in some physical clash on his physical actions on his life. Eventually, agrarians refused to join the government because they understood the agreement as negotiations. Which place, which leaders, how, what kind of responsibilities would they have in the government. Vyshinsky and Bulgarian communists understood agreement just like formal inclusion of two representatives. Therefore, the negotiation in Bulgaria failed, and Bulgarian government didn't receive foreign Western recognitions till the sign of peace treaty on the same year. Another example about Soviet interference in local activities came from Hungary. That was Sviridov note sent in June 1946 to Hungarian government in the name of the Allied Control Commission. Sviridov was the Soviet vice chairman in the commission, but he sent the note without the knowledge of British and American representatives. Soviets claimed that fascist organizations such as Catholic Youth and Smallholders Party, Independent Youth and Boy Scout had been responsible for the killing of Soviet soldiers. They insisted these organizations to be dissolved and future purges of fascists to be conducted. The government promised investigations, but British and Americans reacted against these unilateral actions. The Western state wanted that any new demand to be consulted in the commission first, and then to be proceeded to the government. Eventually Foreign Office succeeded to receive the Soviet approval of this protest, and made a comment that, quotations for their documents, that if, as public opinion persistently maintained, the original note was written at the urging of the communist leaders, it eventually missed its aim. The Anglo-American protest undoubtedly greatly encouraged Hungarian majority opinion and give a timely warning of Western interest in Hungarian affairs. However, this note British documents is not very supported from the future development in Hungary. The Soviets continued their interference in Hungarian affairs. Such an example is the prosecution against Bela Kovacs in 1947. In May this year, the Soviets sent to communist leader Matyas Rákosi, who acted as prime minister at that time in the absence of Ferenc Nagy, confession alleged to be made by Kovacs. Confessions implicated the participation of Nagy and other agrarian leaders in the conspiracy against the Republic. Similar interference might be traced in the prosecution of Bulgarian agrarian leader Nicola Petkov in the summer of 1947. As it seems from the Bulgarian documents and the diary of communist leader Georgi Dimitrov, the verdict against Petkov was directly consulted with the Soviet leader. In general, the communist and Soviet pressure against the Agrarian Party increased in 1946 and particularly in 1947 when the peace treaties with these three countries were signed. The prosecution of Bela Kovacs was the first of the big trials against agrarian leaders in 1947. The prosecution of Kovacs was used by communists to force Nagy to resign as prime minister in May 1947. And although there were agrarian ministers in the government, the influence of the smallholders' party was weakened. In the same year, the smallholders' party was liquidated, and the party was dissolved. In Romania, 1947 led to the prosecution of Maniu, who was sent in prison, initially was in home custody, and then was sent in prison for life. In July this year, the National Peasant Party in Romania was dissolved. Bulgarian agrarian leader Nicola Petkov was sentenced in September and was sentenced in August, and in September he was executed. In the same year, the Agrarian Union was also dissolved. In the end of my presentation, I'll try to outline several of the most important reasons that led to the end of the agrarian parties in these countries. One of the reasons that led to the end of agrarian opposition was agrarian fears by possible Soviet reaction if they opposed very firmly to the Soviet pressure. Here, the case with Gemeto in January 1945 is a very good example. Also, some concessions that Nagy made in Hungary. Also, agrarians at the beginning had some illusions about communist intentions and was willing to collaborate with them. Concessions which they made later tried to appease the Communist Party while waiting for the Soviet withdrawal. That also was not very appropriate tactic, because concession just increased the pressure on oppositions and the pressure on agrarian members. Also, the other very important reason for the end of this party was that agrarians were not belligerent parties, while their opponents were willing to use various forced actions. There were also unrealistic hope for effective Western support. There were very few examples that Western states succeeded to support agrarians effectively. Also, here to this conclusion, I rely also basically on Bulgarian documents, but in my opinion, there were some unrealistic expectations for democracy in Bulgaria after the end of the war. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. And we will move on to the last presentation of today and of this conference by Dr. Rokoski on a prisoner's lot of agrarian politicians in Czechoslovakia after World War II.
Dámy a pánové, milí kolegové, zůstali jste tady, to znamená, že nejste ještě ve vězení. Jste unavení, ale na svobodě. Poslední příspěvek bude hořký, protože hořký byl úděl agrárníků. Přednesu ho pochopitelně ve výrazně zkrácené podobě a nepůjde mi o úzký vězeňský úděl, jakkoliv by byl také prospěšný, ale spíše o ucelenější pohled. Agrární strana, nejsilnější politická formace v meziválečném Československu a hlavní pilíř všech koaličních vlád, nesměla být po válce obnovená, protože se údajně tak těžce provinila na zájmech národa a republiky. Pro agrárníky to bylo překvapivé, trpké a bolestné zjištění. Pro jejich předáky to znamenalo pokračování tragického údělu. Tentokrát už nebyli perzekvováni od nacistů, jako tomu mnohdy bylo v uplynulých 6 letech, ale od vlastních lidí, od Čechů. Osudové rozhodnutí padlo v londýnském a moskevském exilu, kde s nesnesitelnou lehkostí a bez skrupulí zlikvidovali mocného politického protivníka, opírajícího se o drobné a střední rolnictvo, hájícího zájmy venkovského obyvatelstva a soukromého hospodaření. Válka mnohé nenávratně změnila. Stalinské Rusko po svém velkém vítězství se stalo klíčovou mocností ve střední a východní Evropě a posílilo mocenský vliv i československých komunistů, kteří byli vždy poslušní vůči Moskvě. Komunisté si vydobili od prosince 1943, kdy byla uzavřena Československo-sovětská smlouva, mimochodem na 10. výročí Švehlova úmrtí, až do března 1945, kdy bylo v Moskvě schváleno, jaké bude obnovené Československo, rozhodující postavení a agrárníkům přiškli stigma kolaborantů. Nebyli to však jen komunisté, jakkoliv byl jejich tlak dominantní. Byli to i sociální demokraté, národní socialisté a lidovci, kteří na tom mají nezanedbatelný podíl. V agrárnicích viděli bývalého mocného koaličního partnera, jehož klíčové postavení je dráždilo, někdy oprávněně, jindy nikoliv. A teď se naskytla příležitost se ho zbavit. Pragmaticky se jich chopili, aniž by si vůbec uvědomovali dosah toho, co činí. Na nátlak komunistů potvrdili účelovou lež, že agrární strana se těžce provedila na zájmech národa a republiky. Také je totiž lákalo bohaté agrární dědictví. Nešlo o zradu, nýbrž spíše o rozsáhlý majetek a voliče. Agrární strana nebyla jen politickou stranou, jak tady zaznívalo, ale především byla mohutným hospodářským kolosem, jenž zahrnoval majetek miliardových hodnot. Strany národní jednoty na nic nečekaly a bryskně si ho rozebrali hned po květnu 1945. Druhým hlavním aspektem likvidace agrární strany byl její značný voličský potenciál, přes 1 000 000 voličů. Všechny politické strany v Národní frontě věřily, že to bude právě jejich strana, která získá voliče agrárníků, že právě s jejich podporou zvítězí ve volbách. Všechny se domnívali, že mají dostatek dobrých důvodů, proč by bývalí agrárníci měli volit právě jejich stranu, a věřili, že s jejich podporou se stanou nejsilnější stranou v obnoveném Československu. Ke komu se venkov přiklonil, víme, přiklonil se ke KSČ, zmínil to už včera kolega Luboš Velek. Jen bych doplnil, že venkov by volil agrárníky, kdyby ovšem je volit mohl. Jakkoliv ten přísun byl doleva, posun zřetelný a agrární strana by výrazně také ztratila, tak pořád by na venkově určitý procenta dostala a myslím, že by to nebyl tak nezanedbatelný podíl. Nemohli jsme tedy volit agrárníky v roce 1946, nemůžeme je volit ani dnes, až tady skončíme. Agrární strana ani nezradila, ani nekolaborovala o nic více, ani o nic méně, než lidovci, sociální demokraté či národní socialisté. Po celou dobu války navíc zaznívalo z exilu, že o budoucí podobě vlasti si rozhodne osvobozený národ sám. Nestalo se tak. Domácí odboj byl nakonec jednání úplně vyšachován. Exilová reprezentace rozhodla, s kým se spočítá a s kým ne. Jiné politické přesvědčení národ z rozhodnutí vlády mít neměl a nesměl. Vedení KSČ tak slavilo velké vítězství ještě před návratem do vlasti. Získalo rozhodující vliv a vedoucí postavení v novém státě. Nebyl možný návrat do předmnichovských poměrů. Po agrárnících převzali komunisté nejen ministerstvo zemědělství, ale i ministerstvo vnitra, které pak v uvozovkách prošetřovalo v uvozovkách agrární zradu. A připadlo jim i nově vytvořené ministerstvo informací. Dívali se dopředu, byli připraveni a věděli, co chtějí. Jaký to rozdíl od demokratů v Národní frontě? Ty svoji nepřipravenost prokázali už při moskevských jednáních a jejich pohled ve vztahu k agrárníkům směřoval do minulosti. Zvítězila u nich stranická zaslepenost, přednost dali úzkým stranickým zájmům před parlamentní demokracií. Kdo je tedy zodpovědný za poválečný osud agrárníků? Kdo je zodpovědný za jejich vězeňský úděl ve Třetí republice? Kdo je zodpovědný za jejich hanobení a zasouzení? Politickou odpovědnost nese 25 politiků, kteří podepsali košický vládní program, a prezident Beneš s jeho tichým souhlasem vše proběhlo. Právě oni postavili v uvozovkách koleje, které vedly k úplnému převzetí moci komunisty, agrárníkům přitom vypálili cejch, co pálí dodnes. Perzekuce vedoucích představitelů agrární strany začala hned v květnu 1945, tvrdě a nelítostně. Předáci, kteří se dočkali osvobození, museli být jako nepohodlné osobnosti eliminováni z veřejného života. Byli zatýkáni a obviňováni z kolaborace. České a slovenské veřejnosti bylo zapotřebí předložit hmatatelné důkazy o vozovkách zrádcovské politice agrární strany. Předseda Beran, jehož gestapo zatklo v květnu 1941 a v červnu následujícího roku byl nacisty odsouzen na 10 let za podporu odboje, si užíval posledních 8 dní svého života na svobodě. Dne 14. května 1945 byl v rodné obci zatčen a převezen do pankrátské věznice, kde už to dobře znal. Zprvu se domníval jako jiní agrárníci, že se jedná o jakési nedorozumění, které se záhy vysvětlí, ale hluboce se mýlil. Poměry v pankrátské věznici byly drsné. Cituji: první měsíce mého pobytu až do konce roku 1945 byly na pankráci krušné, psal v jednom z motáků Beran. Bylo to jako za gestapa. Bylo mi spíláno, byl jsem zahrnut nadávkami, někteří členové národních gard, kteří kořenali službu na pankráci, mi vyhrožovali. Jednou mě dokonce zbyl obuškem bez příčiny jako 100 a 100 jiných. Měl jsem puchýře a krvavé šrámy na zádech. Každý den byli vyšetřovanci vyváděni z cel a byti obušky a gumovými rourami před celami. Nářek, pláč, křik a úpění rvali nervy tisícům vězňů, kteří v těch měsících byli na pankráci. Konec citátu. Když opadly revoluční emoce, tak se vězeňské podmínky přece jen postupně stabilizovaly. Přesto v přeplněné věznici nebylo ponižování vyšetřovanců neobvyklým jevem, stravování bylo nedostatečné, prudce se zhoršoval zdravotní stav vězňů. Ničím neobvyklým nebyl výskyt infekčních nemocí, včetně skvrnitého tyfu. Za uvozovkách s rádcem Beranem putovali do zovězenských cel další agrárníci, jako protektorátní ministr zemědělství Adolf Hrubý, jehož stejně jako celou krejčího vládu po svém příchodu zlomil Heydrich do kolaborace. Mezi začenými novináři, z nichž 21 bude postaveno před Národní soud, byl také redaktor Rudolf Halík, jen za okupace zastával post šéfredaktora deníku Venkov. Po zatčení v Jiřicích byl vzat do vazby v Humpolci, přičemž až do října 1945 ležel v místní nemocnici s těžkým zánětem pohrudnice a katarem průdušek, než byl převezen do pankrátské věznice. Tam už se nepotkal s Janem Malipetrem, který zde pobýval od 8. června do 25. července 1945. Pro bývalého prvorepublikového premiéra, jehož rodinu perzekuovali nacisté, to byla truchlivá zkušenost. Stejně tak pro Františka Machníka, jenž byl odsouzen v únoru 1944 lidovým soudem v Drážďanech k trestu smrti, který mu byl v září téhož roku změněn na 10 let káznice a poslední měsíce války pro něho byly obzvláště tvrdé. Přežil a teď jako v úzovkách kolaboranta ho čekala nová anabáze. Po válce ještě hůře dopadl prvorepublikový ministr vnitra Josef Černý, jenž byl zatčen 9. srpna 1945 a propuštěn byl až po soudním přelíčení 21. dubna 1947. Panuje poněkud mylná představa, že když byla strana zakázána, její majetek zabaven a vůči představitelé byli kriminalizováni, takže se agrárníci nebránili, že byli pasivní. Není tomu úplně tak. Snažili se bránit, ale byli naprosto bezmocní. Všechen agrární tisk byl zabaven a zabrán stranami Národní fronty. Listy Národní fronty jejich obranu neotiskly a žádný opoziční list nebyl povolen. Proti nejhorším a nejvyhlanějším útokům v tisku a rozhlasu nebylo možné se vůbec hájit. Zůstalo jim jediné mlčení. Předseda Rudolf Beran byl odsouzen k 20 letům těžkého žaláře za smyšlenou kolaboraci, protože bylo třeba ospravedlnit zákaz agrární strany a nikdo jiný po předchozích osobujících rozsudcích už v podstatě nezbýval. Procesy proti agrárníkům byly politické procesy, česká společnost je zatím neznala. V poválečném ovzduší a kvasu je považovala za důsledek války. Komunisté nebyli s potrestáním agrárníků spokojeni, demokraté v Národní frontě po skončení retribuce raději mlčeli. A pokud jde o perzekované agrárníky, byli to většinou stateční muži, nejen tím, čím prošli za války, ale možná především tím, čím prošli za třetí republiky. Když byl Rudolf Beran vězněn na justičním statku Javorník, tak mu agrárníci několikrát nabízeli reálnou možnost útěku. Odmítl. Byl přesvědčen, že je nevinen. Nic neprovedl, nikoho nezradil. Útěkem by přiznal vinu. A to bylo pro něho nepřípustné. Únor 1948 byl pouhým logickým vyústěním poválečného vývoje. Češi a Slováci s vlastním přispěním směřovali do sovětského područí. Útoky proti agrárníkům neustaly, jen se nyní v úzovkách tábor reakce rozrostl o bývalé spojence komunistů v Národní frontě, pro něj se rovněž začaly otevírat brány věznic. Agrárníci, pokud nechtěli se dostat do vězení, odcházejí do exilu. Mezi prvními Josef Černý, následuje ho Ladislav Fajráben, tentokrát už s rodinou, Vladimír Brdlík, Čeněk Torn, Miroslav Rechcígl, Martin Hrabík, Leopold Slíva a mnozí další, kteří se zapojí do třetího československého zahraničního odboje. V Československu zatím komunistická propaganda neustále zdůrazňovala a opakovala lživé tvrzení o zradě a kolaboraci agrární strany, které zapouštělo hluboké kořeny. Komunisté rovněž v vozovkách přehodnotili výsledky retribuce. Agrárník Josef Nebeský, který za okupace podporoval odboj a byl Národním soudem osvobozen, dostává v prosinci 1948 trest 12 let těžkého žaláře. Ve vězení na otázku, jaké byly pohnutky jeho trestné činnosti, odpověděl. Cituji. Přijal jsem funkci vedoucího výboru Národního souručenství za okupace na výslovnou žádost ministerského předsedy generála inženýra Eliáše. Vykonával jsem ji v naprostém souhlasu s ním a odbojovou skupinou bývalého kancléře Šámala a ministrů Dérera a Petra, i emigrací londýnské a moskevské. Konec citátu. O něco mírněji dopadl Rudolf Halík, předtím odsouzený k 18 měsícům. Ten v uvozovkách vyvázl s 10letým trestem odnětí svobody. Do vězeňských cel putovali i slovenští agrárníci, kteří za války byli členy exilové vlády v Londýně a působili v poválečné vládě a v parlamentu za demokratickou stranu. Mezi prvními Jan Ursíny, odsouzený k 7 letům vězení, následovaný mnohými dalšími, včetně třeba Jana Lichnera, jenž si odpikával trest ve výši 17 let odnětí svobody. Pobyt v komunistických kriminálech byl tvrdý, zvláště do úsmrti Stalina a Gottwalda. Vězeňské podmínky byly v mnoha ohledech neutěšené a měnily se jen pozvolna. Vězni trpěli hladem, obvykle v krátké době výrazně zhubli, Jan Ursíny o 30 kg, jak píše ve svých vzpomínkách, které před lety připravil k vydání Jan Rychlík. V zimě byli týráni zimou, skoro se netopilo, za jakýkoliv přestupek proti vězeňskému řádu byli zavíráni do korekce. Museli plnit vysoké pracovní normy, což někdy bývalo prakticky nemožné. Nouza byla o různé nemoci a epidemie, jako byla TBC. Jen namátkou připomenu několik příkladů. Václav Cihlář za okupace vězněný 5 týdnů na Pankráci byl odsouzen státním soudem ke 12 letům těžkého žaláře. Připomínám ho kvůli tomu, že ten měl v Československu mimo jiné na starost Vincenta Vitoše, když tady pobýval na sklonku 30. let. Nebyl samozřejmě jediný. Proviněním Cihláře spojil se s Václavem Propůdkem a jinými za účelem obnovení agrární strany. Jednalo se o klasicky vykonstruované obvinění. 40letý Cihlář dobře věděl na počátku 50. let, že je to nereálné, ale stačilo, že býval prvorepublikovým agrárníkem. Cituji. Já nyní po 8 letech všech možných kriminálů i gestapáckých věznic, myslí tu z roku 1941, neumím ani napsat vám dopis. Konec citátu. Napsal do listu rodině. A kvůli této větě zase tento dopis nedošel a byl zadržen jako závadný. Místo toho na Cihláře čekal kázeňský trest, protože, cituji, jmenovaný přes veškerá upozorňování píše soustavně závadné dopisy. Konec citátu. Antonín Chloupek, prvorepublikový agrární poslanec, který stál rovněž v čele stranických odborů, byl odsouzen ve vykonstruovaném procesu se Zelenou internacionálou v dubnu 1952 na doživotí. Také pro něho to nebyla první vězeňská zkušenost, neboť byl půl roku vězněn za okupace. 71letý vězeň byl ve výkonu trestu charakterizován jako člověk, který se vyžívá ve vzpomínkách na staré zlaté časy a na kapitalistické zřízení nedá dopustit. Cituji. Vesnický boháč, syn lékaře, funkcionář agrární strany a národního souručenství, ženatý. Konec citátu. Tak byl charakterizován sedlák Václav Tlustý, odsouzený v jednom z navazujících procesů se Zelenou internacionálou k trestu smrti, jenž byl po odvolání změněn na doživotní žalář. Odmítal totiž kolektivizaci venkova, takže jako mnozí jiní agrárníci putoval na dlouhá léta do vězení. Podobných případů by bylo více. Postižení byli také potomci předáků agrární strany, výčet by byl opět velmi dlouhý. Připomenu, protože se neustále mluvilo o Antonínu Švehlovi, oprávněně jeho syna Antonína Švehlu mladšího, jenž byl odsouzen v srpnu 1952 k trestu odnětí svobody na dobu 12 let. Jednalo se o opět vykonstruovaný proces, Švehla byl v podstatě osouzen kvůli svému jménu. Cituji, je synem velkostatkáře, bývalého ministerského předsedy a vůdce jedné z nejreakčnějších stran předmnichovské republiky, strany agrární. Po svém otci převzal velkostatek a stal se vykořisťovatelem pracujícího lidu. Konec citátu. Spoluvězni si cenili především na Švehlovi mladším jeho charakteru a on sám se choval ke všem stejně bez rozdílu. Náčelník valdické věznice to viděl trošičku jinak a když zamítal jedno z jeho četných propuštění, tak ho charakterizoval takto. Chování má navenek velmi pěkné, avšak to dělá jen proto, aby zakryl svůj nepřátelský postoj k dnešnímu zřízení. Stále se nemůže oprostit od agrárních choutek. Neustále vyhledává k sobě rovné, nic se mu nelíbí, s ničím nesouhlasí, za první republiky pro něj bylo vše lepší. Konec citátu. Když Švehlu mladšího pouštěli z vězení, byl už nemocný. Přes 2 roky ještě churavěl, než zemřel. Rodina žila ve velmi skromných podmínkách, ale obstála se ctí. Jako druhého potomka připomenu Jindřicha Žilku, Jeho otce, jak všichni víme, popravili nacisté za Heydrichiády. Jeho syn Jindřich Žilka mladší byl řadovým agrárníkem, vstoupil do strany v roce 1937 a v 50. letech putoval v úzovkách jen do vězení. Vězeňský posudek o jeho poměru k lidově demokratickému režimu pravil, cituji, odsouzený pochází z měšťácké rodiny. Pro politické stránce se jeví částečně vyspělý, ovšem jeho vyspělost všemožně používal proti zřízení. Ve výkonu trestu se snažil zesměšňovat naše zákony, a to tím, že velmi rád roztrušoval, že jiné jsou zákony a jiné se dělá. Konec citátu. Postoj režimu byl u vystudovaného právníka záporný, po 4letém trestu nastoupil jako tovární dělník, ale jeho poměr se nezlepšil, takže šel znovu do vězení. Někteří, jak známo, ve vězení zemřeli, jako Adolf Hrubý v červnu 1951 nebo Rudolf Beran v únoru 1954. Někteří agrárníci byli i popraveni, jako Josef Kepka, který byl popraven 11. října 1952 v Pankrátské věznici. Závěrem bych jenom připomněl slova literárního historika a kritika Bedřicha Fučíka, který uvedl na základě vlastní vězeňské zkušenosti. Cituji. Inteligence byla v kriminále, a platí to i o katolické inteligenci, až daleko a daleko třeba za sedláky. Je pravda, že režim zavíral výborné rolníky pro výstrahu. Sedláci se však chovali nejdůstojněji ze všech vězňů. V sedlácích byla prostě vzadu jistá důstojnost. Osvětluji si to tím, že sedlák byl jedním z nezávislých členů národa. Byl závislý třeba na počasí, ale ne na lidské zvůli. Musel všecko vzít na sebe, smůlu i neštěstí. Konec citátu. Návraty domů byly pro sedláky, z nichž mnozí byli bývalými agrárníky, často rovněž bolestné. Vesnice byly skolektivizované, zdraví bylo podlomené, spravedlnost zůstávala slepá. A vše, co souvislo s agrárníky, mělo být jednou provždy zavrženo a zapomenuto. Dámy a pánové, děkuji za pozornost.
Thank you very much to all the speakers for this very cohesive panel and for sticking so well to the time frame, which gives us the opportunity to have a good final discussion. Are there any questions or comments to the speakers?
I would like to address sort of a general questions to the members of the panel, because I've noticed that there is a certain sort of teleological tendency in the presentations to regard the 45-48 period as somehow set on going towards state socialism. While we know that the period was much more diverse and it allowed a lot of tensions, and if we may be blunt, for some countries such as Romania was the only sort of a democratic interlude after 29. I would like to ask you, how do you see these 3 years, which actually, is there any room for some sort of tensions, divergences that do not necessarily lead to sort of a totalitarian or whatever regime? And I would also like to address a question to Czeszka Éva regarding the sort of issue of expertise. Basically, I mean, I understand that the communists may have had a problem with the expertise and with experts in general, but at the same time, I mean, it's obvious that they also needed experts. And if they were keen on getting rid of these experts, what sort of experts did they use in setting up the very complex planning technologies that they set up in 48? How did it happen that actually all these members of the Ministry of Agriculture were actually very active Catholics? Thank you.
Would you like to answer first?
přestože jsem byl poměrně kritický k Třetí republice, asi více, než je tady pořád ještě běžně prezentováno, ale myslím si, že to tak prostě ve vztahu k agrárníkům je, nemůžu si pomoci a nemám rád, když se lidem křivdí. Tady se samozřejmě projevilo, že Československo, a nejenom Československo, ztratilo značnou část svých elit, takže jsem přesvědčen o tom, že sociální demokracie a další na tohleto výrazně doplatili a to se do toho promítlo. Nedokážu si totiž představit, že třeba Antonín Hampl nebo někteří další by s něčím takovýmhle souhlasili. Ale na druhou stranu musím říct i ve vztahu k Bulharsku, k Maďarsku, Rumunsku, že ty 3 roky pro Československo jsou pořád výhodou. Je tady pořád, my máme takový termín limitovaná demokracie, který v současné době se tak běžně užívá. Je to výhoda. I při té perzekuci agrárníků ty národní socialisté měli tendenci to brzdit nějakým způsobem a snažili se to brzdit, protože měli v rukách ministerstvo spravedlnosti, takže tady byla určitá dvojkolejnost. Komunisté si nemohli ještě úplně dělat, co chtějí. Problém je v tom, že v podstatě do těch voleb 1946, kdy se tohle odehrálo, se ani ty národní socialisté nedokázali těch agrárníků zastat. Oni to dokázali jako jednotlivě v soukromí. Oni jim vyjádřili podporu a tak dále, ale neřekl to nikdo nahlas. A kdokoliv by to řekl, včetně těch lidí, jako je Václav Černý, Pavel Tigrit, já nevím, kteří jsou běžně tady známí, tak by se ze zlou potázal, protože ty ostatní by se na něj vrhli a byl by štván kampaněmi v tisku. Tolik jenom stručně. Československo, ty 3 roky jsou pro něj výhodou ve srovnání s ostatními státy, ale ve vztahu k agrárníkům ta výhoda není vidět.
Já bych se napřed vyjádřil k té Třetí republice, byť jsem to neměl v úmyslu, a pak mám jeden dotaz na pana Skříňského. Já se omlouvám, a možná, že to bude zajímavé i pro ostatní, tak já to řeknu anglicky. I think that the official attitude which we have here, excuse me, I will switch it off. I can't manage any technique, so I hope that it will not ring again. I think that the attitude towards the Third Republic, as we have it now, and as it is known abroad, is a result of 2 things. Of the image made by Czech emigres after the communist coup abroad, especially the Council of Free Czechoslovakia, and post-November political elites, which wanted to eliminate any possibilities of the expelled Sudeten Germans to make any claims. The fact is what Dr. Rokoski said, that compared with Bulgaria, Hungary, Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, Yugoslavia, not talking about Albania, here where remained some remnants of democracy, especially relative independence of justice, because communists had no control over Ministry of Justice. But the parameters of the communist regime were definitively established already in 1945. They were just adjusted after 1948. It's significant that even during the communist period, 25th of February 1948 was not a public holiday. Public holiday was May the 9th, 1945. And even the communists said that 48 February is just the completion of the socialist revolution, and they were right from their point of view. It was so. And definitively, we shouldn't blame only the communists. We made the choice. Communists won the last 3 elections in 1946. There was no Soviet army in this country, unlike in Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, or Hungary. And as far as agrarian parties, for their selfish attitude towards them, they saw only the electorate. They helped to themselves, to build those jails and gallows, which then met them after February 1949. I am deeply convinced about that, which doesn't mean that, we shouldn't take our hats off for the offers which National Socialists and members of the People's Party and Slovak Democratic Party, which in fact were the pre-war agrarians, brought after the communist coup, home or abroad. But now I have then one question to Mr. Skrzyński. If that Sjednočené stranictvo ludové, we can then eventually discuss it in Polish, played any role after the communist takeover, and especially after 1956. Because, for instance, Bulgarian People's Union played no role. But in Poland, where was still private agriculture, this Stronnictwo Ludowe could play any role. So if you can then make some comments on this, thank you. And I apologize that I interrupted you because you are still too.
Thank you very much. What I have to emphasize is that the civil servants Is it working? So that the civil servants thought that expertness had nothing to do with politics and party politics. So they held scientific discussions, and land was a scientific question for them. But for the communists, it was a political question because they wanted to realize the collectivization. And the Smallholders Party, well, you know that it was a mass party, and it had a left side and a right side, and the communists could only cooperate with the left side, and the right side they had to suppress. And there was a process, and first of all, the Communist Party wanted to smash the smallholder parties into pieces, then the right-wing Social Democrats, and then this non-party situation also was punished. And this expertness is resulted in this non-party situation because of what Béla Pernetsky said, that politics and expertness is not the same. I hope I haven't misunderstood your question.
Okay, Mr. Skrzyński, would you like to respond to?
In June, thank you for your question. In June 1949, the management openly stated the SL and the PSL are not allies, but the only Communist Party instrument influence present. Following the instruction of a communist in November 1949 took place the Unification Congress of a Peasant, Stronnictwo Ludowe and Polskie Stronnictwo Ludowe, Zjednoczone Stronnictwo Ludowe.
Dámy a pánové, diskuze, jak jsem vyrozuměl, skončila. A mně nezbývá nic jiného říci, než že všechno má svůj počátek a všechno má svůj konec. A tak i naše konference má svůj konec. Dovolte mi, dámy a pánové, abych vám poděkoval jménem svým, jménem všech organizátorů a také i s povolením a pověřením našeho pana ředitele, jménem Masarykova ústavu a Archivu Akademie věd. A pevně doufám, sice jsem se neptal na to povolení, ale že i paní docentka Doležalová mi dá to povolení, tak jménem našeho společného centra, abych vám poděkoval za vaši účast, za vaše přednášky a abych vám popřál šťastnou cestu domů. A pevně doufám, že se setkáme při jiných příležitostech, při jiných konferencích. A samozřejmě ten můj hlavní dík patří jednotlivým přispěvovatelům. My se potom na ně obrátíme s prosbou o písemnou podobu příspěvku, který bude uveřejněn v v našem publikačním výstupu, ale podrobnosti budou ještě upřesněny a každý z vystupujících dostane dopis s bližšími informacemi. Dámy a pánové, ještě jednou velké díky. Přeji pokud možno klidný víkend, krásný státní svátek a někdy při nějaké příležitosti na viděnou. Ať se vám daří.